In the heart of a quiet, tree-lined suburb, nestled between manicured lawns and white picket fences, lived a woman everyone admired. Claire Whitmore was the kind of wife other women envied. She baked cupcakes for the neighborhood kids, organized charity drives, and kept her colonial-style home pristine. To the outside world, she was the embodiment of grace, a perfect wife, living the perfect life. But behind those lace curtains, a far different story was unfolding. A story of emotional isolation, fear, and years of psychological torment. A story that would end with a single, shattering act of violence. This is the chilling and emotional story of how repression turned into rage, how love twisted into control, and how a woman who seemed to have it all lost everything, except her voice. Claire met Mark Whitmore in college. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to adore her. At first, their relationship was like a fairy tale. Mark brought her flowers just because. He planned elaborate dates. He listened, really listened, or so she thought. When he proposed under a canopy of stars during a New England autumn, she said yes without hesitation. They settled into a beautiful neighborhood outside Boston. Mark climbed the corporate ladder while Claire stayed home, choosing to support his dreams. It was what she wanted, or so she told herself. At first, the little criticisms seemed like concern. You're too sensitive. That dress doesn't suit you. Don't you think you're overreacting? But they grew sharper, more constant. Mark wanted dinner at 6, perfectly made. He hated when she laughed too loudly in public. He told her which friends were bad influences. Slowly, Claire's world shrank to the confines of her home and her marriage. To outsiders, nothing seemed amiss. Mark brought her to company parties with his hand on her back, always smiling. He bought her jewelry on anniversaries. But behind the scenes, Claire was withering. The control Mark exercised was psychological. He monitored her bank account. He reviewed every grocery receipt. He commented on her weight constantly, never overtly cruel, just sharp enough to make her question her worth. Over time, Claire began doubting her instincts, her intelligence, her decisions. Mark rewrote her identity with each dismissive glance. She gave up painting, something she loved. Mark said it was a waste of time. She stopped talking to her sister, whom Mark claimed was toxic. Her individuality dissolved, drip by drip. And yet, Claire never considered leaving. Mark had never laid a hand on her. There were no bruises, no threats. Just constant control, gaslighting, emotional neglect, and belittlement dressed in politeness. Claire's days became monotonous. Breakfast at 7, house cleaning until noon, followed by hours of waiting for Mark's return. The sound of his car pulling into the driveway brought a rush of anxiety. What mood would he be in today? Would he notice the tiny scratch on the coffee table? Would he criticize the way she folded his shirts? Neighbors praised their beautiful home. Claire smiled and waved, but never invited them in. She couldn't risk Mark finding out. He didn't like her talking to others unless he approved. People meddle, he'd say. They don't understand us. At night, Claire often lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding. She feared the future, but more than that, she feared what she had become. Hollow, obedient, erased. She tried to push back once, suggested getting a part-time job at the local library. Mark laughed and said, "What could you possibly offer them? You don't even have recent experience." It was in those moments that Claire understood. This wasn't love. It was control dressed as care. The final straw came unexpectedly. Mark's company was hosting a holiday gala. Claire wore a red dress she had once loved. But Mark disapproved. "It makes you look cheap," he said. At the event, he ignored her most of the evening, only turning to scold her for speaking too much to his boss's wife. On the way home, he berated her for embarrassing him. When they arrived, he stormed inside while Claire remained in the car, gripping the steering wheel. The next day, she found a long-forgotten painting tucked in the back of her closet. It was a landscape, vibrant, expressive. She had painted it in college. The colors reminded her of who she once was. Tears streamed down her face. That night, Mark came home late. He was drunk. He demanded food and criticized her for being lazy. Then he shoved the painting to the floor and said, "No one cares about your pathetic little hobbies." Something snapped. Claire waited until he passed out on the couch. She sat in the kitchen, staring at a wine bottle. Her hands trembled. She thought of the years, decades, she had given to this man. The dreams deferred. The voice silenced. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She walked over and raised the bottle. One blow. Then another. She didn't stop until the rage emptied from her body. When she realized what she'd done, she calmly picked up the phone and dialed 911. "I need help," she said. "I think I killed my husband." The trial became a media sensation. The prosecution called it a cold-blooded murder. The defense revealed Claire's life behind closed doors. Her journals were read aloud, detailing decades of subtle but relentless psychological abuse. Experts explained gaslighting, coercive control, and emotional trauma. Claire never denied what she had done. But for the first time, she told her story. Women across the country sent letters. Some cried in the courtroom. Survivors saw themselves in Claire. A silent sisterhood formed in solidarity. Claire was found guilty of manslaughter. The judge, visibly shaken, gave her 5 years with parole after 3. "This was not justice denied," he said. "This was justice complicated." In prison, Claire began to heal. She painted again. She wrote letters. She joined support groups. Her memoir became a manuscript titled The Cage You Couldn't See. When she was released, she moved to a small coastal town. There, she opened an art studio that doubled as a support center for survivors of domestic and emotional abuse. She no longer feared the mirror. Claire's story is not about vengeance. It's about repression. About what happens when pain is silenced too long. Behind every perfect facade, there can be silent suffering. Emotional abuse leaves no bruises, but it scars the soul. Claire's story is not an excuse, but a cautionary tale. A reminder that emotional control is a form of violence. And that sometimes, when no one listens, silence explodes. If you or someone you know is experiencing emotional abuse, please know, you are not alone. There is help. There is hope. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to True Crime Hub. We share real stories with real impact, shining a light on what often stays in the dark. Hit the bell icon to never miss a case. And remember, sometimes, the quietest people carry the heaviest pain.